Their emotions keep becoming stronger. Their silence grows heavier with every passing day. The weight they carry inside continues to increase until they reach a moment where they can no longer avoid what is real. Sooner or later, they have to make a decision. They can finally speak the truth they have been hiding, or they can keep carrying those feelings on their own. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear could help explain why this person felt such a powerful connection with you, why they have never truly managed to move on, and why the words they may one day share could come from a place far deeper than you ever imagined. You may be surprised by what comes next. Keep listening, because this part changes everything. If this message already feels strangely personal, there may be a reason for that. Maybe a part of you has sensed this connection for a long time. Maybe something deep inside has always told you there was more happening beneath the surface than anyone could see. This kind of bond is not easy to explain. It is not ordinary. It is not the type of experience that people simply forget and leave behind. Think about it for a moment. What if the person who cannot stop thinking about you is not confused about their emotions? What if they are struggling because they understand those emotions better than they want to admit? What if they have been facing a truth they have spent months or even years trying to escape? What if your presence changed something inside them so completely that no amount of distance, silence, or distraction could erase it? The deepest connections are often the ones people fight the hardest to resist. Instead of accepting what they feel, they spend their energy trying to push those emotions away. They convince themselves that the feelings are only temporary. They tell themselves that enough time will eventually make everything disappear. They believe creating distance will make life easier and help them forget. But some connections refuse to fade simply because someone decides to ignore them. That is where many people become trapped. They keep pretending everything is normal while their heart quietly tells a different story. They stay busy. They fill their schedule. They focus on other people. Yet somehow your memory keeps returning without warning. It appears during quiet evenings, ordinary mornings, and unexpected moments when they least expect it. Ever wondered why that happens? Keep watching, because the answer may surprise you. The mind can create excuses, but the heart has a way of holding on to experiences that leave a lasting mark. That is why some people keep replaying old conversations, remembering small details, and wondering what could have happened if they had been brave enough to say what they truly felt. They may never speak about it openly, yet those emotions continue growing in silence, becoming harder to ignore with every passing day. Many people believe love happens only by chance. They think it depends on perfect timing, physical attraction, chemistry, or random events that bring two lives together. While those things certainly matter, they do not always explain why one person remains in someone's thoughts long after the moment has passed. Sometimes a connection reaches beyond first impressions. It touches something deeper that cannot easily be replaced. That is why moving forward becomes far more difficult than anyone expected. Even when they try to convince themselves they are over it, something inside keeps pulling them back to the same unanswered questions. They wonder what might have happened if they had chosen differently. They wonder whether the opportunity still exists or whether it has already slipped away. Those thoughts grow louder during the quiet moments when there are no distractions left, and that is when the truth becomes impossible to silence. Before we go further, ask yourself one honest question. Has someone ever stayed in your thoughts, no matter how much time passed? If your answer is yes, then you already understand that certain connections leave marks that ordinary memories never can. Sometimes the strongest feelings are the ones that remain completely unspoken, waiting patiently until someone finally finds the courage to let them be heard. Many people believe relationships are created only through timing, daily situations, and ordinary life events. They think people meet, spend time together, and slowly build feelings because everything happens at the right moment. But when we look more closely at human emotions, we begin to notice something very different. Some people enter our lives and leave a mark that cannot be explained by logic alone. Their presence feels strangely familiar before we even understand the reason. Their words stay in our minds much longer than we expected. Their energy creates a feeling that is difficult to put into words. Somehow they reach parts of our hearts and minds that everyday experiences rarely touch. Stay with me because the next part may explain more than you expect. When someone feels deeply connected to another person beyond simple attraction, it is often because something inside them recognizes something meaningful long before they can explain it. Their heart understands what their mind is still trying to figure out. That is one of the greatest mysteries of human connection. Out of billions of people in the world, why does one person become almost impossible to forget? Why does one voice continue to echo in your thoughts? Why does one person's quiet presence bring comfort even when no words are spoken? Why do memories keep returning after you have done everything possible to move forward? Why does their absence leave such a large empty space while the presence of many others never creates the same feeling? Keep listening, because the answer goes much deeper than it first appears. The truth often exists beneath the surface, hidden where ordinary explanations cannot easily reach. Every person carries hidden places within themselves. Everyone has silent hopes, private fears, unanswered questions, forgotten dreams, and parts of their personality that are still waiting to be discovered. As life moves forward, we naturally feel drawn toward people who reflect something important that already exists inside us. That is why certain connections feel powerful almost from the very beginning. It is not because the other person is flawless. Nobody is perfect. It is because their presence awakens something that has been resting quietly inside us for a very long time. They remind us of emotions we thought had disappeared. They reveal parts of ourselves we stopped noticing years ago. They gently encourage us to look at areas of our lives we may have ignored without realizing it. Have you ever met someone who made you see yourself differently? Think about that for a moment. Sometimes the people who affect us the most never force anything to happen. Their presence alone begins changing the way we think, the way we feel, and even the way we understand ourselves. That is why these experiences stay with us long after the moment has passed. They become memories that continue growing instead of fading. Even after distance, silence, and time, the emotional impact often remains because something important was awakened that cannot simply be turned off. This person was not drawn toward you simply because being around you felt easy or comfortable. They were pulled closer because your presence affected them in a way they could not ignore, even if they tried. Without fully realizing it, you reached places inside them that had remained hidden for years. You brought long-buried emotions back to the surface. You awakened feelings they believed they had already mastered or left behind. Slowly, the emotional walls they had spent so much time building began to lose their strength. The protection they depended on no longer worked the way it once had. Keeping their distance became more difficult because something inside had already started changing. No matter how much they tried to return to the person they were before meeting you, it no longer felt completely possible. That is what makes certain connections different from ordinary experiences. They quietly change people from the inside before anyone notices it on the outside. Don't miss what comes next, because this is where everything begins to make sense. Sometimes, the strongest changes happen in complete silence, long before anyone finds the courage to speak them aloud, and by the time those feelings are finally understood, they have already become impossible to forget. Many people can catch someone's attention. Many people can create a moment of excitement. Many people can leave behind a memory that lasts for a little while, but only a small number of people create deep inner change without even realizing they are doing it. That is what made your presence different. You became a reflection for this person. You became a mirror that quietly revealed parts of themselves they had avoided facing for a long time. A mirror does not invent anything new. It simply shows what has always been there. When they looked at you, they did not only see the person they were in that moment, they also caught a glimpse of the person they believed they could become. Your kindness quietly exposed the loneliness they had been carrying inside. Your confidence highlighted the places where they still felt unsure. Your honesty challenged the emotional walls and protective masks they had hidden behind for years. Your presence reminded them that life, relationships, and emotional closeness could be experienced in a completely different way. That is one reason letting go of you has never been easy. Keep watching because the next part explains why some people remain unforgettable. People often forget short moments of excitement. They forget casual conversations. They forget experiences that never touched them deeply. But they rarely forget someone who awakened something meaningful inside their heart. Those memories stay alive because they changed more than emotions. They changed the way a person saw themselves. A connection like this is about much more than simply making someone feel happy. It is about growth. It is about personal change. It is about being gently pushed toward becoming a stronger and more honest version of yourself. The human heart naturally moves toward experiences that help it grow, even when that growth feels uncomfortable. Sometimes change creates fear. Sometimes it asks people to leave behind what feels safe and familiar. Yet those moments often become the ones that shape a person's future. What makes this even more meaningful is that you may never fully realize the impact you had on this person's life. The people who influence us the most are often completely unaware of how deeply they changed us. They are not trying to become unforgettable. They are simply living in a genuine way. They carry their own struggles without placing that weight on everyone around them. They face disappointment without allowing it to destroy their ability to care. They keep moving forward after painful seasons. They continue choosing kindness even when life gives them many reasons to become distant or cold. Have you ever wondered why certain people stay in your heart for years? Stay with me because the answer is closer than you think. Real influence is rarely loud. It quietly grows over time until one day you realize you are no longer the same person you used to be. In a world where many people hide behind appearances, true honesty becomes something rare and unforgettable. That is exactly what this person noticed when they looked at you. They did not see someone who was perfect because perfection does not exist. They saw something far more valuable. They saw someone who felt real, someone whose actions matched their words, someone whose presence brought a sense of peace instead of confusion. And perhaps this is where the real story truly begins. Not with attraction alone, not with perfect timing, not because of simple luck or coincidence. It begins with recognition, a quiet understanding that two lives crossed paths for a reason, and after that meeting, neither person could return to being exactly who they were before. Recognition does not always arrive through dramatic moments or unforgettable conversations. Sometimes it begins as a quiet feeling that simply refuses to leave. It stays in the background of everyday life. It returns during peaceful evenings and busy mornings. It remains even when someone tries their hardest to ignore it or explain it away with logic. Don't skip this next part because it may answer a question you have carried for a long time. Some feelings remain not because people refuse to move on, but because certain connections leave a lasting mark that becomes part of who they are, making true forgetting far more difficult than they ever expected. They may keep telling themselves that these emotions are only temporary. They may believe that enough time will slowly make everything disappear. But some feelings do not fade simply because someone decides to stop thinking about them. That is exactly what has been happening inside this person for a very long time. They believed they could keep moving forward without ever facing what they truly felt. They thought distance would make life easier. They convinced themselves that silence would finally bring peace. They hoped that avoiding this connection would slowly reduce its importance. But something completely unexpected happened instead. The harder they tried to walk away, the more they became aware of everything they were leaving behind. Every distraction worked for only a little while before their thoughts quietly found their way back to you. Every new experience was compared, even without realizing it, to the moments they once shared with you. Every new person reminded them in some small way of the connection they could never fully replace. Stay with me because this next idea explains why some people remain impossible to forget. When someone leaves a deep mark on another person's heart, Distance cannot erase what was truly felt. Time may change many things, but certain memories become part of who someone is. That is why no matter how hard they tried to move on, something inside continued pulling them back to the same unanswered emotions. A meaningful connection is never measured only by how often two people talk. It is not defined only by messages, meetings, or spending time together. Sometimes the strongest bonds continue to exist even during complete silence. They are measured by the way two people quietly change one another. Some people pass through our lives without leaving any lasting impression. Others arrive and somehow shift something deep inside us. They change the way we think. They change the way we understand ourselves. They change the way we look at love, trust, and emotional closeness. That is why your presence has remained in their heart. Whether they ever admitted it or not, meeting you changed something important inside them. You influenced the way they looked at relationships. You helped them understand vulnerability in a completely different way. You showed them that trust and emotional closeness could feel safe instead of frightening. Have you ever wondered why one person stays in your mind while so many others slowly fade away? Keep watching because the answer may be simpler than you think. Real connection is not built only through time. It is built through the quiet moments that leave lasting change long after the conversation has ended. Some of the most valuable lessons in life do not come through success or easy victories. They often come through experiences that challenge us to grow. They come from moments that ask us to look deeper into ourselves than we ever expected. And sometimes those lessons arrive through another person. You became one of those unforgettable lessons in this person's life, not because you were trying to teach them anything, not because you forced them to become someone different. It happened because the way you treated them quietly reminded them of possibilities they had stopped believing were real. You reminded them that kindness still exists. You showed them that honesty still has value. You helped them see that real strength does not always need to be loud, proud, or aggressive. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who remain patient during difficult moments. They continue showing compassion when it would be easier to become cold. They stay genuine even when nobody is watching. Those qualities are incredibly difficult to forget. Many people can create excitement for a little while. Many people can bring temporary attraction or happiness, but only a few create a feeling of respect that continues growing with time. Even fewer inspire someone to become a better version of themselves. That is what made this connection different. It was never only about romance. It was never only about emotions between two people. It became a journey of growth. It became the meeting of two lives at the exact moment when something inside one person was finally ready to wake up. Real growth is rarely comfortable. It asks people to face the parts of themselves they have spent years avoiding. It asks them to let go of old fears, question long-held beliefs, and stop hiding behind excuses that once made them feel safe. That process can feel unsettling. Sometimes people mistake that discomfort as a sign they should walk away, when in reality it may be the very sign that real change has already begun. They often believe that if something feels difficult, then it must be the wrong path. But many times, discomfort is simply the first sign that something meaningful is beginning to change. That was the quiet battle this person faced whenever thoughts of you returned. One side of them wanted to protect the life they already understood. They wanted everything to remain familiar. They wanted to avoid the uncertainty that comes with opening their heart to someone. But another side of them was quietly saying something different. Deep inside, they knew that staying exactly the same was no longer enough. That inner conflict slowly became impossible to ignore. Day after day, they started noticing how often memories of you appeared during ordinary moments. A simple walk, a quiet evening, a familiar place. Suddenly, your memory would return without warning. They remembered conversations that once seemed completely ordinary. They remembered how they felt whenever they were near you. Small details they thought they would forget somehow stayed perfectly clear. A certain smile, a certain look, a certain feeling that words could never fully explain. Stay with me because the next part reveals why these memories never truly disappeared. These moments remained alive because they were connected to genuine emotion. The human heart naturally holds on to experiences that carry real meaning. That is why some memories remain bright, even while countless others slowly fade away. Without even realizing it, you became one of those unforgettable chapters in their life, and that is something time alone could never erase. As the months passed, another truth slowly became impossible for them to deny. Walking away did not bring peace. Ignoring their emotions did not create freedom. Pretending not to care never changed what they truly felt inside. The emotions remained, the unanswered questions remained, and the connection remained as well. Sooner or later, every person reaches a point where avoiding the truth becomes more exhausting than accepting it. Maybe this person is slowly approaching that moment now. Maybe they are finally beginning to understand that courage does not mean living without fear. Real courage means choosing honesty even while fear is still present. That single realization can completely change the way someone looks at their situation. Instead of constantly asking how they can escape these emotions, they begin asking why those emotions appeared in the first place. Instead of searching for ways to forget you, they begin wondering why forgetting you has always felt impossible. Instead of focusing only on everything that could go wrong, they slowly begin imagining what might happen if they finally stopped hiding from what they truly feel. Have you noticed how the hardest truths often become the most important ones? Keep watching because this is where everything starts coming together. Sometimes the biggest change begins with one honest question that a person has avoided asking for far too long. This is often the point where real transformation quietly begins. The strongest relationships are not built because two people never feel afraid. Fear is a natural part of caring deeply about someone. The deepest connections grow when a person decides that honesty matters more than comfort. That choice rarely happens overnight. It develops little by little. It grows during quiet moments of reflection. It grows through difficult questions that refuse to disappear. It grows every time someone chooses to be truthful with themselves instead of hiding behind excuses. Slowly, almost without noticing, the weight of silence becomes harder to carry than the fear of speaking honestly. That is when something important begins to shift inside. The walls they once depended on no longer feel as strong. The distance they believed would protect them no longer feels safe. What once seemed impossible starts feeling necessary. Don't miss what comes next, because this is the turning point. When a person reaches the moment where truth feels lighter than silence, they are no longer running away from their emotions. They are finally moving toward them, and that quiet decision often becomes the beginning of a completely different future, one they may have been resisting for much longer than they ever realized. The words they once found impossible to say slowly become easier to speak. The emotions they worked so hard to hide begin rising gently to the surface. The walls they built to protect themselves no longer feel as necessary as they once did. That is one reason this connection never truly faded away. Even through distance, long periods of silence, and endless uncertainty, something continued to exist beneath everything that could be seen. Quietly, it kept shaping both of your lives in ways that neither of you may have fully understood at the time. And maybe you changed because of this experience as well. Maybe it taught you patience when nothing seemed certain. Maybe it gave you strength during moments when giving up felt easier. Maybe it helped you understand your own heart more clearly than ever before. Maybe it showed you what you truly deserve and what kind of connection brings peace instead of confusion. Stay with me, because this next part ties everything together. Real connections rarely transform only one person. When two lives truly leave a mark on each other, both people carry something valuable from that experience. Even if life creates distance for a while, the lessons remain, the memories remain, the personal growth remains. That is what gives certain bonds their lasting strength and makes them impossible to forget. This is why some connections continue living long after the conversations become quiet. They remind us that love is not only about emotions or attraction, it is also about becoming a better person. It is about learning to be more honest with ourselves. It is about growing in compassion. It is about understanding our own heart and finding the courage to face what we truly feel instead of running from it. In the end, what this person feels reaches far beyond simple attraction. It is gratitude for the way you change something deep inside them. It is respect for the person you have always been. It is admiration for the quiet strength you showed without asking for attention or praise. More than anything, it is the peaceful realization that meeting you became one of the experiences that helped shape their life. Whether they choose to express those feelings tomorrow, months from now, or years later, the truth inside them continues becoming stronger. Have you noticed how some emotions grow clearer instead of fading with time? Keep watching because the answer may explain more than you expect. Some truths become stronger the more people try to ignore them. Some feelings become easier to understand with time instead of disappearing. And some people remain unforgettable because they awaken something that had been waiting quietly inside us all along. If this connection has survived silence, distance, uncertainty, and so many unanswered questions, then perhaps it was never meant to disappear easily. Maybe it existed to reveal something important in both of your lives. Maybe it was meant to uncover hidden strength. Maybe it was meant to teach patience when everything felt uncertain. Maybe it was meant to remind both of you that genuine connections are rare and should never be taken for granted. Life has a remarkable way of bringing certain people into our path at exactly the moment we need them most, even when we cannot see the reason right away. Sometimes the purpose only becomes clear after enough time has passed. Looking back, many people realize that the moments they once believed were ordinary were actually the moments that changed everything. The conversations they almost ignored, the people they nearly let go, the experiences they thought had no lasting meaning.